Today I want to sit down with you guys and talk a little bit about a little game called Killsquad. Killsquad bumbled onto my radar a few weeks ago during all of the E3 hubbub, and I'm really glad it did, because it's not some big AAA project. It wasn't an indie game that got to sit on stage alongside of those big AAA projects, but it's doing some things that I have been wanting an isometric ARPG to do for a long time now. In fact, just about a month ago, I was talking with some friends about isometric ARPGs like Diablo 3 and Path of Exile, and I've got some friends who are really into Path right now, and I love Path. I played a lot of it, in its early days. I know it's way better now. Played a lot of Diablo 3, Torchlight. I like those games, but I'm not a huge fan of the click to move, click to attack control setup. In fact, I really enjoyed Diablo 3 over on console because it was actually direct control. I could move my character with my left stick. I could even dodge roll. It reminded me of playing Gauntlet on the GameCube back in the days. I've been craving something like that, and in general, I just want to see more studios jump into the ARPG fray. We've seen a few of them on Steam over the last few years. Unfortunately, none of them have been that successful. They've had issues, and again, a lot of them were all, more traditional point-to-click combat and movement systems. Killsquad is a direct control game. The developers want to build something that plays like a hack and slash RPG, but is also an isometric ARPG. And that gets me really, really excited. It's also got a pretty cool sci-fi aesthetic. It's not hyper original. We've definitely got a lot of inspiration going on here, as you'll see when we take a look at some of the heroes that are going to be available in the game when it launches into early access. We should probably talk about that. They are planning to launch into early access this summer 2019 on Steam. They don't have a price yet. They don't have an exact date yet. And we'll talk a little bit more about them doing early access towards the end of the video. But why don't we talk a little bit more about Killsquad, how it functions, how it plays, what it's doing mechanically. Interestingly enough, it's taking on a couple ideas that I think are getting a little bit more popular as of late. Deep Rock Galactic and Helldivers both did a contract system similar to what Killsquad is looking to do, and in general, Killsquad is looking to deliver a more session-based ARPG experience. It's less about you sitting down and playing through some big, long story, and more about you just grouping up with friends or with randoms via matchmaking or even solo, and taking on these contracts in fast-paced, session-based gameplay experiences. Now, the team behind Killsquad is a small Spanish studio called Nova Rama. They're most well known for things that you have definitely never heard of. Almost all of their games have only released over in Europe, and they developed a series called Invisimals, which was actually an augmented reality franchise for the Sony platform for quite a few years. For the most part, when you look at Nova Rama's background, they've done a lot of contract work. This seems to be one of the first times that they're really going out on their own, at least in quite a few years now, self-publishing and making a project all on their own accord. So for me, that's kind of like already exciting. Like, yeah, I want to get behind this and see what this team can do when they're out on their own. So as we mentioned, direct control ARPG. The game is going to have a selection of heroes, or I guess you'd call them bounty hunters. The game calls them heroes, but here's the way the sort of world of Killsquad works. Everything is basically gone to shit. That's the idea. These big mega corporations are essentially hiring on these kill squads to go to these rogue planets to gain access to the last remaining sources in the galaxy. You are one of those kill squads. Your team goes on out, picks up contracts which actually function in real time. They're global, so everyone who plays Killsquad will see these contracts just like they did in Helldivers, just like they do in Deep Rock Galactic, and then you can matchmake, join other people, and the team is even talking about doing competitive, so having leaderboards and scoreboards, which would be pretty cool, give you a reason to maybe even rerun some contracts. They talk about giving rewards to people for competing. It would be awesome to see, people in the top 10, top 5, top 3, when that contract expires, get exclusive rewards. I think that would be pretty neat. Speaking of the heroes, according to their roadmap, they're going to have 4 heroes at launch when the game goes into early access, and they want 2 more in the 6-month period after that. We do now have information, though, on those initial 4 heroes. It includes Zero, a healer/DPS. Let me make it very clear, too, while we do have sort of the holy trinity here of DPS, tanking, and healing, every single one of these heroes we're going to talk about is designed to play alone as well as in squads. So it's not a hardcore, you need to have the holy trinity to function. They just want to have those sorts of roles available for people. So again, Zero, healer, DPS. Cosmo is the Revenant or tank. Dude's got a big-ass hammer, very much inspired by Jason in Space, which I think was Jason X. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've got Cass, who was just recently revealed. She's a warrior nun. She's a high DPS sort of burst damage character with a little bit of crowd control. She's got a big-ass sword, or katana, whatever that thing is. Looks awesome. And then last but not least, we've got Troy, who is the gunslinger, or ranged DPS offering. Some great animations going on here. This was another one of those things that really, drew me to the game. When I first saw footage of it, I was like, oh wow, this looks pretty cool. Like direct control, I'm into that already. I like the animations here. Cosmo looks incredible with that hammer swing. It just looks like a satisfying game to play, and I think that's a hard thing to do, especially when you talk about isometric games. It's hard to really get those animations. They're so tiny. You've got small character models on the screen, and you're not often doing incredibly detailed animation work, but it does really seem like they're doing that. Even if they're not here, they've got sort of the visual trickery going on. It just looks fun when you watch a character like Cosmo bounce around the environment, smash that hammer into the ground. And to me, that's a big deal with an isometric game. I'm like, yeah, okay, this has already got my attention. So again, you're gonna pick up one of those heroes, and you're going to make your way into one of the game's contract offerings. These contracts will exist across multiple planets in the game's galaxy. At launch and early access, they're going to have 3 planets with 12 different contracts that will feature approximately 30 enemies and 40 weapons for you to unlock as the player. Now, the environments themselves are randomly generated. So they've got, handcrafted bits, tile sets essentially. They then randomly generate those, as well as the contracts. The environment itself will have randomly generated threats, so you're not always going to get the exact same experience when you go into the fray. Again, very much like Helldivers and like some of the things Deep Rock Galactic does. When we talk about the environments, you might run into, just a big creature boss, but you might also see things like meteor storms and minefields that actually deal environmental or threats and hazards to you, which I think is pretty freaking cool. Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. They talk about having skill trees, right? You're going to have your passive abilities, your initial active abilities for the different heroes, but there's also in-contract leveling. This is very much like Helldivers. Helldivers had a really cool in-contract or in-mission leveling system where you would, sort of level up, gain access to your different abilities, and then you could use those things. Almost like a MOBA, if you will. They are doing something similar to that. And initially I was kind of like, this seems weird, but when you talk about like session-based gameplay where you get in, do a contract, and get out, it gives you the opportunity to always do something a little bit different. You can jump on in there and you can tune your leveling choices when you're in that contract to your current play style. How do you want to play? Or maybe you do it to the situation at hand. Things are getting a little bit spicy. Your team's taking some damage from Meteor Storm, and you're playing the Revenant, Cosmo, and you want to focus a little bit more on damage resistance and general sustain for you and your team. So you focus on more, tank support abilities rather than going down the DPS route. We haven't really got a clear look at how those systems are going to work, but I like the idea of it. I think there's potential there to, mix it up and to make sure that when you go out on a run, you can kind of tweak things as needed. I like the idea of that. It's very different when compared to other ARPGs on the market right now, and I'm genuinely excited to see where that goes. Now, the team is doing a couple other cool little things. They've got an encyclopedia or a codex where you can actually collect information, lore, if you will, on the different alien races you might encounter. And they've got a bit of a roadmap set up. Like I mentioned, at launch, they're looking for 12 contracts across 3 planets, 4 heroes, 40 weapons, approximately 30 enemies, all developed to their final state, and then they basically want to build the game on community feedback from there. They also have some other things that they sort of mention. I talked about them delivering 2 new heroes over the next 6 months after launch. They want to do more monsters, more weapons. They also are prototyping like co-op vehicles, which I think could be really cool. I'd love to see like a 2-person, buggy or something. You can rip across the environments. That would open up a lot of opportunities for them to expand the scale of the environments in some cases. Plus vehicle missions in an isometric ARPG. Hell yeah. If that worked out, I'm all for seeing where they go with that. They want to add new contract types as well, boost up that variety, different types of rescue missions, defense missions, VIP missions. In general, the game looks pretty snazzy. I definitely want to learn a little bit more about it. If you want to head over to their YouTube channel, they've actually got 3 videos right now running through 3 of the heroes. You can check out a video for Cosmo, a video for Cass, and a video for Troy that show off some of their abilities, how they function and play. It's a great opportunity to look at the gameplay. They also recently uploaded a bit of a developer commentary based on their E3 demo that they had at the Indiecade. So If you want to see more of this game as you've been seeing it while I've been talking and just listen to what the devs have to say, you can do that. I'll also have a link to their Steam page in case you want to wishlist it or read their early access roadmap in greater detail. But I think this is definitely a game worth popping on your radar, especially if you're like me and you've just been looking for something a little bit different when it comes to isometric ARPGs. It's also coming from a small dev, doing their own thing. I know that early access is still, a bit taboo for a lot of people, and some people just refuse to buy into it, and that's totally fine. But I've been fortunate enough to support quite a few awesome projects in early access over the past, 3-4 years now. Astroneers, A Medieval. There's just been Deep Rock Galactic, which we've been talking about left and right. There's been some devs out there who have really used it as a tool to build the game alongside of their community, to be able to push forward into development while releasing content that the community is actually interested in, and that's based on feedback from the community that ends up making the game really good. Like Deep Rock Galactic, I talk about that game a lot because it's really good. It's like one of the best 4-player co-op games out there right now. It's incredibly unique in terms of its aesthetic and, sort of its world. It would be great to see Killsquad turn into something special. We'll see where things go. I'll definitely check back in with you guys and bring you a video whenever the game does finally jump into early access and we can go hands-on with it. But this one, maybe put it on your radar. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave any of your thoughts or questions down in the comment section below, and I will see you all in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose, the most important task of your life.